Hello and welcome to Bust and Beyond with your host, Robin Hayhurst. In this podcast, Robin will share his personal journey and experiences from his businesses and help you to learn from failure. You'll learn tips, tricks, and how to see things from a new perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Robin Hayhurst.
What do you think was the trigger? Was it boredom? Was it why, when you're running a company and it's obviously going all right, was it stress, boredom? What was the trigger to you kind of trying to find another outlet for you?
It's a very good question, although I've actually never thought about it that way. So first of all, this time that I did the drugs when I had the recruitment agency was the second time that I've been a drug addict in my life. The first time was just before my son was born. So first of all, I think I know I've got a personality. I am a bit of an adrenaline junkie. I'm always after the next big thing. So yes, I think boredom was the trigger, that it was something that I knew. It was something that I had done before I had my son, and it was all exciting when I did it as a teenager. Trying to do it in your early 30s, that's when I really messed up.
I think it's an interesting point. And I've come across people and clients that have got to a certain stage in their business where they're comfortable, they've got money in the bank, they're not worried about next month or the next year, but they have completely lost themselves because they haven't got that passion anymore. They haven't got that drive that you have in, have you come across the hierarchy of needs, the Maslow's triangle? They've got past the first stage of needed the security and the shelter and the food, the bottom level. Their life has transcended to the next level, but they haven't, because they don't need the food, the shelter, etc. They've stopped having the drive, and it's really it's quite an interesting journey to then try to work out what's their trigger, why, what's their why now, because it's changed.
Correct. And you know what, you raised such an interesting point, and I think if we have to look at Maslow's in sort of broad strokes, right? The bottom is your physical needs. And that quantifies desperation. Sometimes we are so desperate for those physical needs that we'll do whatever it takes to get there. The second sort of, or the middle tiers are the emotional needs. And those emotional needs aren't as driving, aren't as apparent as the physical needs. And I think you've actually hit the nail on the head. That's why the drugs, that's why we lose ourselves. We don't address that need for love, belonging, acceptance, all of those emotional and psychological needs, and we lose ourselves. And when we lose ourselves, we lose our meaning for life. And I can honestly tell you, Robin, I don't think I had a purpose. I don't think I had an identity for so many years. And that was fundamentally my problem.
I totally see that. And I think, as I said, I come across people that do this. Someone starting a business who has got to turn over a certain amount to pay the mortgage, to keep the family together, all this stuff. I'm surprised a lot of them do it. They succeed at that bit, and then they completely lose it after that because they don't know where to go. So, with your businesses prior to the one you're doing now, did you ever get any support? Did you ever get any coaching, any mentoring?
Absolutely nothing. And another thing that's quite interesting is every single business I've started with absolutely zero capital. I'm a bit of a fly by the seat of your pants, gung-ho, let's just run off and do this kind of thing. So I've got no support in the first couple of businesses. Since I've started my coaching business, and I think as a result of my personal development journey and just getting in touch with who I am, I have invested massively in personal growth, in personal development, in coaches, in courses, in resources. I devour podcasts, webinars, whatever I need that's going to support me. And I've become quickly aware that is a big component of your success.
I think it's huge. I mean, I say my success as a mentor and coach is, yes, it's 35 years experience in the industry and running businesses. Really, really important. But actually, I read, I've had my own mentors, I listen to podcasts, And I think the experience, the kind of the time that you spend in the industry or do what you do or just in life allows you to pull out of these things, the golden nuggets, rather than taking everything verbatim and just going, oh, right, okay, I will try and follow the whole thing. You just go, that would have really helped me. That is what, and you have this kind of eureka moment. I think a lot of clients actually kind of miss that. They say, well, you've had 35 years experience, you've done this, done that. Yeah, I have, and I've had huge success and huge failure in my time. So, but at the same time, a lot of what I've learned in the last 3 years since I've been invested in myself is kind of has really tailored how I help my clients now. And I think a lot of them don't understand that, everyone who's in our situation should be continuing investing in themselves to learn more and be better and better able to help their clients.
Absolutely. And, you speak about the eureka moment. The particular passion of mine on this personal development journey has been mindset and really shifting my mindset and reframing the way I see myself in this journey. And as a result, I've listened to the Tony Robbinses, the Mel Robbins, and all the international gurus. And I've also listened to coaches and everyone, here's the thing, everyone says the same thing, but they say it slightly differently. And one day you hear something from someone, and it doesn't matter who that someone is, but you have that eureka moment. And that's the power of that constant self-development and constantly getting input from people in your life.
Yeah, I think I started my coaching journey off with Tony Robbins, strange enough. For some crazy reason, I bought a tape, it was recording. I think it's digital now, so called The Ultimate Edge. I started listening to it and I was getting, oh my God, yes. Wasn't 100% sure about how he was putting it over because it's very Americanized and very Tony Robbins. But definitely the whole idea of what he was suggesting and what you should be thinking about and how you can particularly change your feelings in an instant if you know how to and you practice, because it does take a lot of practice. I found that quite good. He wasn't someone I kind of carried on with, but it definitely was a trigger to me kind of step into this side of the fence.
And that's all we need sometimes. It's just that trigger. Can I share with you one of the big triggers that happened when I lost everything just after I lost the recruitment business?
Please do.
Now, I'd just come clean from drugs. I lost my business. I lost my house. I lost my car. My pets died on me. I lost everything. When I say I lost everything just disappeared in the space of a couple of months. And my dad turned out to be my biggest supporter at the time, and he was really just such a rock of support for me. And I was on the phone with him. He was in Zambia at the time. I was on the phone with him one day, and I was having a nice pity party, and I was saying to him, Dad, really, what have I done to deserve this? And I was really just lamenting the fate. And I'll never forget what Dad said to me, Robin. He said to me, Sean, stop asking why me and start asking what now. And Robin, those words didn't come from a Tony Robbins. They didn't come from an international guru. But those words were the words that put me on the path. And they are the words that I still ask myself today. Because let's be honest, business is tough. As much as I'm in my dream job, I love what I do. There are tough days. And I still have to move past that why me and into what next. And that really helps me just take action. So for me, those were absolutely pivotal words. And incidentally, my dad died of a heart attack the next day. So those were the last words he actually spoke to me. So I've really, really held on to those.
I had a similar situation. So, I totally get that. I lost my father last year. So last year, it's still last year. So it's 2021 to COVID. And I had a conversation with him on the phone. He was in hospital. He was a little bit delirious. I managed to get him out of the delirium just on the phone. But something in me said this is going to be my last ever conversation with him. So I wouldn't let him go. And I had that fantastic conversation, and I told him I loved him and all that kind of stuff. And he said, you're so soppy. You're so soppy. And I still remember it. So pleased. Something in me said this is going to be the last conversation I ever had. So I was so pleased that I had that time. That was really important to me. So I totally understand that. And I think going back to your point about different people saying the same thing in different ways, when I'm working with people, I think a big part of coaching and mentoring is being very patient and just realizing that some people don't get it. You've got to explain it 10 different ways. And it's lovely when they do get it. When you finally explain it the way that they kind of click and go, oh, I totally understand that. But when I was, when I first started out in business, I was lucky enough to come into the family company. I was naive enough to think I didn't need any help. It wasn't until 5, 6, 7 years later that I went out looking for help and couldn't find anyone specific to my industry at the time. Ended up with a very large franchise coaching company, won't name them. And they really did understand the industry. They really, really did understand the industry. They wanted to coach me what they wanted to coach me, not what I needed. And so it put me off coaches. I thought coaches are these people that don't really understand what they're going on about. It's all smoke and mirrors. They're not going to make a big difference to me, which I totally understand. Lots of my potential clients feel exactly like that, And, you get trolled on Facebook and Instagram. I don't know if it's happened to you yet, but, people say, who are you to know what you're talking about? And it doesn't bother me at all, but it's really, I totally get that people think that anyone who's mentoring or coaching doesn't, can't help their businesses. But every time I speak to a business owner, you start to realize that they haven't got the fundamentals in place. What they have got in place isn't scalable. Their setup is completely wrong. And, particularly in construction, which is kind of instrument from construction development, house building, people have a mentality that they can't work really hard. This is going to work. And I agree, working really hard is really important. But you've got to work smart. If you don't work smart, and if you don't have those tools available to you, core values, understanding why you're doing it, when you wake up in the morning and you've got a really bad day ahead of you and you don't understand why you're actually going through that process, it makes it really difficult.
But you've hit on such a valid point. And again, I look back on the 3 businesses that have failed, and I look back on the business that I'm in at the moment. And we don't know what the future holds. I told you there's no plan B either. This is taking me into retirement. This one is lasting, right? But I truly believe I have found out what my purpose is. I found out my meaning. I've figured out why I've been put on this planet. I know why I'm getting out of bed in the morning. And I think a big mistake that many business people, myself included, make is we go into business because we have these delusions of grandeur. And we think that business is going to bring us wealth and fame and fortune. And that's great if it does. And if that's what you want. But what if that's not what you want? What if you want to make a difference in the world? What if you want to bring running water to the children of Somalia? That's what you need to be pursuing. And you need to find a way to monetize that.
I totally get you on that. I really agree with that. I think people really don't understand why they're doing things. And often it starts off, particularly in my industry, someone is a really good plumber or they're a good project manager and they suddenly decide that they're going to now run a business doing it. Completely different skill set. If I was trolling you, for instance, I'd say, well, you've had 3 failures. Who are you to tell me what to do and stuff like that? The reason for this podcast is to say, look, you might have failed at something, but if you haven't learned from it, I don't want to talk to people on this podcast who go, well, I got done. And Frank, my partner, buggered off all the money and it was his fault, or it was COVID, or, they're not interested in me. Of course, these things play a part. What's in you that you do wrong? What can you change and do better next time? That's what it's about, because you will always get these rogue things happen. I've spoken to lots of people on the podcast already who've had problems with partners. I've got a couple of clients who've had problems with partners and family, but they put themselves in that situation. I've always said trust is not enough. Trust is brilliant and it's absolutely important, but it's not enough. You've got to have checks and balances in place. And if someone trusts you, they'll allow you to put checks and balances in place, because that's safeguard everybody. And I think, it's such an important area of business where the people don't really care. And yes, I had one massive failure in business, and it was the most difficult thing I've gone through. I've just, talked about that in my podcasts, the first one. But, and people will say, well, you're just a failure. Well, I'm not. I started another company immediately after. That did okay. Didn't really enjoy it. So that was kind of part of the reason why I closed it. I started doing this because I just realised I absolutely loved it. And people can say all they like, but, after 35 years in the industry, understanding the industry from the site up, understanding business, making loads of mistakes, and now kind of going, right, if I was going to stop myself from making those mistakes, what would I do? Reading, speaking to people, talking to people. It's just made it very, very clear to me the common mistakes that business owners make.
But you know where it starts, Robin? It starts, and you've intimated this, starts with taking 100% responsibility for everything that happens. And sometimes that's a very difficult or a very grey concept. I've been a victim of crime living in South Africa, and I can ask myself, well, what responsibility did I have? I was a victim of crime. But that's not what we're here to discuss. When we look in a business context, right, we've got to ask ourselves, how was I responsible for this? How can I learn from it? And I personally believe in failing often and fast. There's many things that I've tried in my current business that haven't worked. But I haven't shut the doors and said, well, that's it. The business is over. It doesn't work. We've got to try again, try differently, and take responsibility for everything that we've done in this business and figure out how to move forward from that.
Again, I totally agree with you, and that's such an important part of business. I've spoken to a client recently who has had about 4 or 5 people completely rip him off. I'm very candid with clients. You can't push your foot around people because you can't get them value by doing that. And I just said, look, in all this, there's one common denominator, and that's you. So we need to change you because you have allowed people to do this to you. And, you've got to, one of my favourite sayings is birds of a feather flock together. So there'll be people in life and industry that take advantage, that take the backhanders, that do all that kind of stuff. Let them kind of go to that side and keep away from me, right? And I'll work with the people, the same core values as me, that believe in, honesty and doing the right thing when they can. And I think if you keep with people at the same core values as you, then you'll find the business still easier. But it's actually, when people have come to me with really, really good opportunities, even recently, but their core values are not my core values. And I just know that I can't work with them.
I love talking about values because in my career coaching, I always say to people, you want to aim for a fit or for a hiring scenario where you are chosen based on culture fit as opposed to based on role. Values and that alignment is very close to my heart. But here's the thing that I often ask my clients to do. If you say integrity is a value of yours, define what you mean by integrity. Because we think we know. And again, this is a very this comes up a lot in coaching. We think we know what the other person means because we might be defaulting to either a dictionary definition or our own preconceived ideas about what that word means. So what does integrity mean to you? If I'm going to get into a partnership, a collaboration, a joint venture, whatever the case may be, and you say to me, my values are integrity, what does that mean to you? How do you run your business? So it's important to understand the values, but it's also important, in my mind, to understand the person and how they interpret and live by those values.
I totally agree. I use a system for my clients to interview people they're going to work with, listing down their core values and having the questions around the core values. Not black and white, our core values, honest, are you honest? Doesn't work really. But, it's just trying to work out questions that are going to get people thinking. So one of the ones I use is if you had a back box or kind of a belt that has to go up on the wall, but the back's cracked, do you fit it? Because clients will never know about it. Do you fit it or do you replace it? Now, if your core value is honesty, there's only one answer. But the person being interviewed might be going, well, actually, he might, if I say I'm not going to fit it, I'm going to replace it, he'll say, but you're wasting my money. So he's not 100% sure about the answer. And you want an honest answer. That's what you want. You don't want to be pleasing you. You want an honest answer. So we list out all the core values and we list out questions around those core values. So client first, good question would be, have you ever been back to site to sort a problem out for a client outside working hours? Things like that. It's so important. Deploying people, particularly in construction, but in any industry, we seem to come and get an hour or half an hour to have a chat to them. And particularly in construction, we go, well, come along for a week and see how it goes. That's it really. Whereas actually you should be sitting there and you have some kind of scoreboard. So that if you're interviewing more than one person, you have a record of it and some kind of score. So you can have your gut feeling about someone, but you've also got some kind of scientific method for scoring them, so you can compare those as well. And I think that's such an important thing. And the other thing around core values, I also say to people, and you being in career coaching and other, you'll understand this. People tend to put an advert out, and they tend to say, right, I want a carpenter that can work 7 days a week, and I'm going to pay you, 35 grand, and I want you to have this qualification, that qualification, that qualification. Well, in the UK at the moment, and really worldwide, there is a shortage of skilled labour. So if you lead with that, you would just tell them what you want. Lead with what they want. And I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about a company that invests in their employees, a company that will allow you to grow with the company, a company that's family orientated. The things that person is looking for, because it's going to draw them in, and you're going to draw the right people in, rather than the other way around it. And I see so many adverts, they're just so wrong. And they go, well, I can't find anyone. Well, no, you can't.
Absolutely. So you raise such an interesting point, because in my career coaching methodology, I teach my clients there are 3 swear words: skill, qualification, and experience. The reason they're swear words is because that's what people are writing job specs on, which means that's what people are screaming out on. But if we shift that whole dynamic right around on head, and we start screaming on culture fit, we start screaming on ethics, integrity, personality, values, those important things. And here's the thing, Robin, I have had a handful of clients who have approached the recruitment game or the job search game this way, from a relationship building perspective, from a finding the cultural fit. And then those clients have turned around and said to them, we want you on board. Will you write a job spec? Tell us what you want to do for us. Now that to me is the nirvana of job search. And let's be honest, when we start our businesses, that's pretty much what we do. We write our own job specs. So why can't this apply in the job search environment? It can. It absolutely can. But it just means people have to start thinking a little bit more outside of the box.
I totally understand that. I follow a guy called Jeff Birch. He's a motivational speaker, and he very kindly did a talk on Zoom for my clients last year after me contacting him. Very, very clever man, very, very funny. He puts a whole kind of, it's about sales and running businesses, but he says it in such a funny way. But one of the things, I don't know how many years ago it was, must have been 15 years ago, I went to see 3 nationally recognised comedians and Jeff Birch in the space of 2 months. I can't remember a single joke the comedian said. I remember every story Jeff Birch told. And one thing he said, and it's kind of relevant to get the right people, he says 2 types of people work in business. There's ambassadors and there's assassins. Ambassadors just think your business is the best business. They think it's amazing. They tell everybody it's amazing. They tell everyone your product's amazing, the company's amazing. And assassins, we've all met them. They work for a company and everything's wrong. The company don't know what they're doing it. And he said, look, train the ambassadors. They're not good at their job. Train them. Invest in them. Make them better. Get rid of the assassins. However good they are at their job, get rid of them, because they're not right for the company culture. And that's kind of looking at it from a company side of employ these people, and goes back to core values as well. So, but yeah, he's definitely worth looking up. There's quite a bit of stuff on LinkedIn for Jeff Birch, so he's very good. I don't want to go over time on this, so I really wanted to kind of now touch on, if you have just started again, but if you're going to give advice to someone who's starting a business, just keep it to 3 main points. what are the 3 things you'd advise them to do?
Based on my experience, the first thing, non-negotiable, find out who you are. Spend the time. It took me a decade to get in touch with who I am, my core values, what I want from life. So ask yourself the big questions. Find out who you are. Find out what your purpose is. Do not go into business because you're chasing the grand buck. Do not go into business because you're chasing or you think you're good at something because you've had a job and you're, like the example you related about the plumber. You're good at plumbing, so you'll be good at a plumbing business. Find your purpose. That's step number 1, absolutely non-negotiable. That's the thing that's going to get you out there in the going gets tough. Number 2, I would say, and I think this comes from reaching the absolute lowest point in my life when I lost the recruitment business. We need to stop fearing failure. We are so scared of failure that sometimes it paralyzes us. And there are many decisions that I'm facing and do face on an ongoing basis that terrify me. But what I do is I play the what if game. What if this doesn't work? Okay, that'll happen. Okay, so what if that happens? And I'll take that what if to the absolute extreme. And sometimes the extreme is I lose everything. But because I've lost everything before, it'll be pretty shitty. And I'm not going to die. So we've got to stop fearing failure. I think that's really important. I still struggle with it, but it's something that I am consciously working on.
Before you go on to your last point, just to go on that, I think it's really, I mean, this is much more of a Tony Robbins thing, but it's not a spiritual thing. It's a real thing that happens. If we worry about failure, the chance of failure happening is a lot higher. Now, why is that? No, it's not to do with the spirits and the fact that the G and whatever. It's to do with the fact that you're concentrating on that and not running your business. And it's that simple. You're concentrated on the failure and the fear. And we've all only got so much emotional energy. And I think emotional energy rather than time or physical energy is the thing that runs out most quickly. And if you use that emotional energy or worrying about the fear side of it, this could happen, that could happen, whatever could happen, you're not actually putting the effort into running the business. And I think that is really, really, really important.
Correct. And you know what, there's a saying, I can never remember it, energy flows where focus goes or focus goes. It could be the other way around. And what I often say to my clients who are paralyzed by fear is I say, give yourself a time limit. Put the timer on. If it's an hour, that's fine. If it's 10 minutes, that's fine. Play the what if game. Imagine every possible scenario and then stop and carry on. And that's what we don't do because our minds chew on these things in the background and we've got to learn to interrupt that thought cycle and say, I'm not thinking about that. Done. So yeah. My third point comes from my very personal lesson from my dad. We need to turn why me into what next. Too many of us, our society, are walking around with a victim mentality and with an entitled attitude with their hands out saying, what do you have for me? What are you going to do for me? And we need to stop this victim mentality. We need to stop the pity parties and we need to mobilize into action. What next? What do you have? What do you want? How are you going to get there?
I see that happen a lot, actually. I kind of turn it around a little bit. So from a slightly different angle, I find when people have done things to me and my company that are completely dishonest or I see being immoral, rather than jumping out there trying to seek revenge, I leave it to the world. And it's strange how many times those people have something terrible done to them. Now, again, it's a bit like the kind of what you focus on, all this kind of stuff. It's nothing to do with fate and someone looking down at you. It's the fact they'll do that to someone else who can do something about it. And that's why they get the comeuppance. So I think, that it's a slightly different angle, but it's the same kind of problem. And I think that's quite important.
Absolutely. The wheel turns. It's a universal principle. I think it's in the Bible and the Quran. One of the few things perhaps they agree on.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Really enjoyed our chat. And and hopefully we'll chat again.
It's a pleasure, Robin. Likewise. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Bust and Beyond with Robin Hayhurst. Be sure to tune in next time and visit his website at robinhayhurst.com.